Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be having an update on the storm system that could bring major issues for parts of the central eastern U.S. It does have a severe weather threat for parts of the southern plains into the mid-south, maybe getting as far north as parts of the Tennessee Valley, the lower Ohio Valley region, and maybe parts of the Carolinas. We'll see about that. It's also got a high wind threat for parts of the northeast and the Ohio Valley, maybe down to parts of the Tennessee Valley. It's also got a winter storm potential on the backside of this low here as well. We'll be talking about all these threats here, and especially going into the severe weather potential. We'll be going deep in detail with that as well. Before we get started with this video, if you guys do like weather-related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we'll be having more updates on the system here as well over the next couple of days. So definitely stay tuned for more updates as well. So we're going to get started with the SPC Outlook here, or the Storm Prediction Center. This is for today. Maybe some thunder for parts of Oregon, California, and Nevada. Day 2. Hey, no thunderstorms forecasted tomorrow. But that changes when you get into day 3, which is Wednesday. We got a slight risk for severe weather across parts of northeastern Texas, northwestern Louisiana, most of western Arkansas, and a good chunk of central and eastern Oklahoma as well. They actually had a special afternoon update. Typically, they don't do afternoon updates for their day 3 outlook, but usually they do it for any major changes. And also, this is not a major change. Really, the biggest change for this is that they shifted the slight risk further north as well, which is a sign that models are starting to trend a little bit slower and also stronger with the low as well, which kind of leads to a more of a northern track as well. Here's day 4, which is Thursday. We still got that large 50% slight risk across most of Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, southwestern Tennessee, most of Arkansas, and far eastern Texas. Pretty much the same areas like yesterday's update as well. And then on day 5, predictably too low for severe weather for day 5 for the time being, which that would be Friday. So we're going to get started with the GFS model here. It's going to be quite generally across most of the US over the next couple of days. Things do start to change when we get to Wednesday. Here comes our low pressure system moving through the several rockets, but at the same time, you got this strong southwesterly wind here going on across a good chunk of the country as well, covering the Ohio Valley, northeast, even back into parts of the southern plains as well. For some areas, you could experience some strong wind gusts out of the southwest as well. Could be at times 35 to 40 miles an hour some places, especially in the parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley could experience some strong wind gusts out of that as well. But eventually we get into Wednesday night. That's when the severe weather threat definitely takes shape here. So this is getting into the overnight hours on Wednesday night here. Our low is situated up in the parts of the panhandle of Texas, and eventually at some point we should start to see some thunderstorm development in the parts of northern Texas and the parts of Oklahoma at that time. And then as we get deeper into the overnight hours into early Thursday morning, we got a 997 millibar low in southwestern Missouri. That's going to eject to the northeast as well. Check out the backside here of this low here. You got close isobars, got heavy snow going on. There might be a possibility for near blizzard conditions on the backside of the low as well. But you also got quite a bit of snow going on, extending all the way up into parts of Michigan as well. Some people could experience snow for a good period of time as well. You could certainly see a decent amount of snow out of this as well. Just to the south, though, you do get that mix of some sleet and freezing rain. I don't think we're going to see much of an ice storm issue with the setup here. That may change over the next couple of days, but for the time being, I don't think we're going to see an ice storm issue with this. But some areas may be able to experience quite a bit of sleet as well. So now this is getting into the early afternoon hours on Thursday here, getting closer to peak time heating. You got a surface low in central Illinois. Now I will say that the GFS is still the furthest north model out of the rest. Now there are models close to the GFS. I believe the ICO model is very close, in same way with the NAM as well, which will at least check out the NAM in a little bit. But with a stronger low, it's going to take a more northern track. That should be noted. I believe that's a 991 millibar low right there. So that's a pretty strong low. And that's also a favorable setup for severe weather as well in the warm sector, which in this case here, it doesn't have a lot of activity out there. which that'd be a big concern there. If you don't have much in the way of shower or thunderstorm activity over a large chunk of the warm sector, that could lead to higher instability values as well. So that's something that should be noted as well. But it does have thunderstorm activity going on across parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, and that eventually will be approaching Mississippi, Tennessee, and up into parts of Kentucky as well. Which in this case here, this is getting into the evening hours on Thursday. And you can see here thunderstorms blowing up from Kentucky all the way down into Alabama as well. Some of those could be supercells as well. This is going to be one of those situations where you have a high wind shear environment and a low instability environment as well. There's still going to be plenty of uncertainty with this system here as well. And you can see here the system here continues to move off to the northeast. And then again, this is going to be a big wind maker for the northeast as well. You guys certainly in the overnight hours, Thursday into Friday morning, you guys could experience a pretty good wind gusts out of it. Now, getting into the early morning hours on Friday, there might be that risk for some strong storms in the parts of the Carolinas and Virginia. It seems like some models have backed off that potential as well, but that could change as well. That's something that should be noted. But I still do believe there's going to be at least some type of strong to severe storm threat for parts of the Carolinas and Virginia. But for right now, it doesn't look very impressive there at this time. But then again, that could change over the next couple of days. Here's the Canadian model, which on the last time that we looked at the Canadian model, it was a further southeastern model. It still is, but there's a northwest shift with the model as well. Used to it went through like southeastern Kentucky, which honestly, in my opinion, was way too far to the southeast. Now this time it kind of goes up along the Ohio River, but I still do believe it's still a little further southeast, but probably a little bit more accurate on this right here, I would say here. And not usually it does handle a little bit better here, but I think there might be a little bit of bias on the model here for this setup here as well. But you never know. But either way, it does have a little bit more of a normal track, and it still brings some big time impacts as well. Something else that should be noted as well, one of the bigger reasons for the northwest shift is with a stronger low. Now before it was like 1,002 millibars, and now it's 996 millibars. So if you get a stronger low, it's going to be able to help fight back that Arctic air a little bit better. So it does lean a little bit more to a northwestward track as well. So the intensity low does matter here with the track of the low as well. Of course, you still got the Arctic high to the north. You also have that Atlantic high way out in the Atlantic Ocean, but that high pressure system out in the Atlantic still covers parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas as well, at least for a couple days anyway. It does seem like the low pressure system in the cold front may try to win that battle as well as that milder air as well. But either way, still quite a significant storm system. Could bring a lot of snow, a lot of wind, and even for severe wind in the warm sector as well. And also, in my opinion here, I think the European model may have a better handle with the track here. Honestly, I think it's a little bit more accurate. Here, what you can see here in this type of view, here comes your low pressure system coming out of Oklahoma. You've got some thunderstorms. Some of those could be strong and severe in the warm sector there, all the way back down to parts of Texas. You're going to see the system here continue to move off to the northeast as well, which the European model has also been trending northwest as well. And as we kind of get into really right around the early afternoon hours on Thursday, now this is one of the biggest uncertainties here, or at least a limiting factor. It's still got a lot of shower thunderstorm activity. Now I will say that it has decreased shower and thunderstorm activity, which kind of increased odds for more instability to be involved as well. Now, I've said on the last video, models do tend to be a little bit underdone when it comes to instability values, especially the medium range guidance like the Euro, Gfs, Canadian model. They usually are a little bit underdone when it comes to instability values, which I've definitely noticed that with the higher resolution models coming in, they are showing higher instability values, which is honestly no surprise, which we'll check that out in a moment. But either way, with the European model, still got a lot of shower thunderstorm activity down there. But honestly, at the same time, it's also decreasing activity as well, especially early on. It does indicate the potential for some strong and severe storms getting as far north as maybe into parts of Kentucky as well, just by looking into the precipitation type map as well, which of course that could certainly change as well. But either way, though, still a pretty significant storm system. You definitely notice on the backside of low, a lot of snow going on back there, especially some pockets of very heavy snow back there as well. So this is also going to be quite a snow producer as well. And you also got that mix of sleet and freeze rain kind of in between as well. And here's the NAM model. And you can see here, it's now fully in range, at least for Wednesday and Thursday. You can definitely see here, it's a stronger low, number one, but it's also further northwest as well. It's kind of between the GFS and the European model. I think it did come back southeast just a little bit with the 18Z run. I think it was a little bit further north with the 12Z run. But I do believe at some point here over the next couple of days here, some of the malls that are further south, some of them are further north, are eventually going to come closer together. And I think the track is going to be something like this here in between here, maybe through southern Illinois, southern Indiana, maybe getting up into somewhere in the parts of central Ohio. And kind of going back the other way here, I think it will go through southern Missouri, maybe in the parts of northern Oklahoma as well. So for some areas in here, especially in the warm sector, if you live in the parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, even the parts of Ohio and Indiana, the track low really depends on your severe weather potential. If it's further south, that decreases your potential, but if it's further north, that increases your potential as well. But I do believe either way, if you live in the parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and Louisiana, you guys still got severe weather threat either way. If it's further south or north, you still got a severe weather threat out of this. But for areas further north, the track low really depends, and that's a similar situation for areas in the cold sector where you could potentially see a lot of snow. The track low also depends up there as well, because wherever the low goes, that snow shield is going to follow along with it as well. So then again, the track low definitely matters for a lot of areas as well, if it's in the warm sector or even in the backside of the low as well. So then again, still some uncertainty here, but I do believe models are going to come in between and probably have a track somewhere, something like this here, roughly anyway. At least in this range here. It could change. It could certainly change here, but this is what my current thinking is with the track of the low for now. Probably taking a more northern turn there up there in Ohio, I would say at the least. But then again, things could change on there as well. One of them also have been on the summer track here as well, especially for yesterday, summer track with the Canadian model. It did come further northwest as well. Now, that's comparably between the 6Z run and 12Z run. The latest 18Z run, it did not come northwest. It's actually kind of the same here going along the Ohio River. But regardless, it still brings in a winter storm threat and a severe weather threat as well. But then again, I think I do expect that to come probably a little bit north as well. Probably at least north of the Ohio River in southern Indiana. I think I can agree on that a little bit better as well. Okay, let's get in a little bit more detailed in the warm sector here. So we're going to get started with the NAM model with this one. And we're going to first check out 850 millibars. Actually, let's talk about 500 millibars real quick in the upper levels. So kind of getting into Wednesday here, at one point in the overnight hours on Wednesday, we do see a negatively tilted trough in here. Our low is somewhere up in Oklahoma at this point, and we do have a negative tilt trough. Now, like I said multiple times before, it really doesn't matter with the tilt or trough, either if it's positively tilt, neutrally tilt, or negatively tilt, it still brings a risk of severe weather either way. Now, the significance of it kind of depends with the tilt of the trough. If it's more negatively tilted, it can increase your probabilities for severe weather. If it's positively tilted, it does decrease, but either way, severe weather threat doesn't really matter with the tilt of the trough. But it does shear out a little bit though. And then you can see here your jet stream really takes into place here as well. Eventually, then again, that trough does begin to shear out and it becomes more positively tilt at that point as well. Now let's talk about the load of a jet, which kind of gives you an idea about the wind shear. And let's kind of move this out of the way so we can see the time. So 15Z Wednesday. So getting deeper into the day here, eventually when that trough becomes negatively tilted, you do notice there we start to see a stronger low of a jet taking place here. Now, this is a pretty favorable low of a jet, I'll definitely say here. Definitely pretty favorable. Anywhere above 50 knots would be a pretty favorable environment for severe weather. Low of a jet lies anyway. We're definitely going to be well over that. And you can see here as we get into morning hours on Thursday, here's our front right here, at least a dry line anyway. Along and just ahead of the front would be a favorable environment for severe weather at this point, which in this case here, check out the low of a jet. I mean, 80 plus knots. I mean, that'd be very favorable for severe weather. Now, something else that should be noted is the fact that if we don't have much instability, if the wind shear trend's stronger, sometimes the wind shear may be too strong and it can shear the storms out and you don't really see much of any severe weather out of it. That's a possibility as well. But then again here, as you get into the early morning hours, well, not early morning, but the early afternoon hours, check out this insane low of a jet that NAM has. I mean, when you get 90 plus knots, I mean, that's a pretty impressive low of a jet, especially in a warm sector. I mean, that's something you don't see very often. So this is going to be something to really need to keep an eye on. No doubt about there's going to be a lot of wind shear out there. For everybody. Definitely plenty of wind shear. Don't have to worry about the lack of wind shear. There's going to be plenty out there. Really, the biggest question is how much instability could we see? So let's talk about the instability. So checking out surface base K. I think green would be a good color. So, all right. So then again, for Wednesday, since the system is trending slower, this is becoming more of an overnight event for parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and eventually it gets into Arkansas and Louisiana into the early morning hours. So that's something that should be noted as well. So it's a neutral type of event here. And you can see here with instability values, it does have 1,000 joules per kilogram and higher in some places, which would be pretty favorable for severe weather. Let's get a sounding right here along the Red River, well over 600 cape. For a type of environment like this, it doesn't take much cape to get severe weather going. Honestly, for an environment like this, maybe at least 500, you do get severe weather potential. It does look like with this instability, though, it does look to be kind of behind of the favorable environment here. It's going to be hard to get soundings here with instability values. We'll have to check out the Supercell Composite and stuff like that to get better soundings. But either way, though, getting near peak time heating, you got this nice sliver here of instability here at this point here from southeastern Missouri all the way down to southeastern Louisiana. And eventually, of course, as you get deeper to the overnight hours, those instability values do back off as well. But then again, there's that potential that the model still could be underdone. With some of the previous events, for what I've seen in the past, especially with the December 10th and the derecho in the Midwest derecho back in December, models before even in this type of range, they were not very impressed with the setup, but eventually we get 48 hours and 24 hours away from the event, it does begin to uptrend as well. So that's what I'm kind of watching for there. If that occurs, that would not be a good thing for the setup here as well. All it does is increases your potential for severe weather. Let's check out those dew point values. This is also a pretty important ingredient when it comes to severe weather as well. Which you can see here from the NAM, it gets 60 plus dew points at least as far north as the Red River. But even for an environment like this, even like 58, 59 dew points will still be favorable for severe weather. You did notice from the SPC, they had it further north here. Even the lift index values are also a little bit elevated as well in this case here. So I would definitely have to pay attention to areas even with dew points around 58 to 59, which in this case here, it gets it all the way up into southern Indiana with the NAM as well. But if we do trend towards a stronger low and a slower system, all it's going to do, this is going to give more time for these dew point values and really generate the favorable environment for severe weather to get further north as well. Plus, those numbers could certainly get higher as well. So that's not really a good thing at all as well. I mean, look at that batch there of dew points in the Gulf of Mexico, 70 plus. So there's definitely a good batch of moisture down in the Gulf of Mexico just waiting to get north as well. But even areas down along the Gulf Coast, you could still see the potential for some severe weather as well. You're going to need a lift mechanism down there, though, which it would be a cold front or a boundary. But honestly, I think the greatest potential for severe weather, if I was a storm chaser, I'll probably chase somewhere maybe in the parts of northern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, maybe into western Tennessee as well. But I think generally the greatest risks for severe weather will probably be in this region and here as well. Let's talk about the Supercell Composite values, and let's go back, track a little bit. And you can see here, really in the early afternoon hours, well, not early afternoon, but in the evening hours, it's not a very variable environment. But as you get into the overnight hours, you definitely notice some Supercell Composite numbers do increase as well. So you can see here, a favorable environment for severe weather. Really, anybody in the green colors will be favorable for strong storms. In areas in the yellow and the orange covers will be favorable for some severe storms as well. Which if we do check out in Oklahoma and see what sounding we get. So, ooh, okay, so what do we got going on here? Well, you got a pretty good hodograph here. Probably not favorable for significant tornadoes. Maybe a much larger hodograph would be favorable for that, but that's still favorable for tornadoes either way. So you got quite a bit of story to felicity numbers going on here. Then again, all you need is 150 when it comes to story to felicity numbers, and that'd be favorable for severe weather. You're doubling that number at least. Instability values will be favorable, even though it's below 1,000. For an environment like this, when you got a lot of wind shear to work with, honestly, all you really need is like 500 or over. Now, I do believe, if I'm correct with the December 10th event, we had tornadoes with instability values with, I think, 300 or 400, something like that when it comes to instability values. So it doesn't take much instability to get severe weather going, even for tornadoes as well. There's also some good lap rates as well. That's certainly going to help increase that severe weather threat as well, is those lap rates as well that's going on out there. So overall, this would be favorable for all hazards as well. Let's get a sounding here for Thursday, which you can see here with those Supercell Composite numbers do get pretty far north. Let's get into northern Mississippi. See what we get out of that area. Okay, so instability value is a little bit lower, a little bit over 400. I mean, this is not a terrible sounding. You do have a pretty strong elevated mix layer, though. That can certainly help with some of those updrafts out there. But you got a very large hodograph. That'll be favorable for some stronger tornadoes out there as well. That also indicates for how large a hodograph is, these storms are going to be moving fairly quickly as well. I mean, these storms are going to be moving very fast here. But this is a pretty decent sounding, I'll say overall. Plenty of wind shear to work with, though, of course. But instability values are lacking. But this is going to be the big factor here when it comes to severe weather. That's the instability values. That can really determine how significant the severe weather event could be. If we trend higher with instability values like getting over 1,000, that can lead to a more significant event for severe weather. But if we can at least stay around 500 below, we might be able to avoid that significant severe weather potential. But either way, severe weather is going to be around as well, more than likely here. Unless models downtrend with instability values, which honestly I kind of doubt with that. But your favorable values do get as far north as the lower Ohio Valley, which you can see here. Pretty similar here. Instability values a little bit lower. Cape of 335. It's not the worst sounding that I've seen, but I think this at least would be favorable for damage winds. I think regardless, that's what we're going to talk about in a little bit, is the wind gusts without thunderstorms. Um, so that's the NAM. Let's talk about the GFS here, which you can see here pretty similar when it comes to the load of the jets here. It's pretty strong for Wednesday and Thursday. But it should be known this is not really a higher resolution model. The NAM has better high resolution than the GFS has, so that's something that should be noted as well. Plus, the global models do tend to be underdone when it comes to instability values as well. So let's talk about instability. And honestly, then again, some of these instability values might be a little bit underdone. Something I do notice though, it's got a lot of cyan going on out there, which could limit the severe weather potential out there. Well, let's get a sounding up there in central Oklahoma, see what we get. Within that greater instability. And with this sounding here, uh, wind shear is still pretty favorable, pretty good amount of instability. Now, it's not a very unstable environment here. As you can see here, usually you want these here to be a little bit spread apart instead of to be very skinny as well. I also do notice that there's a little bit of a mid-level cap as well. That's also could be a limiting factor as well. Which honestly, I think we're going to cap this event here early on because with the drought you got going on further out west. And with that drought going on less, you get a stronger elevated mix layer, and it can also help cap events as well. So honestly, I think we're going to cap this event later, or I meant early on, but I think we're going to eventually break that cap later on tonight. We also got some pretty good lap rates as well, so this would be favorable for all hazards as well. You can see here going on the next day, not pretty high with instability values, but still probably favorable for severe weather for some areas. Here's dew points, which you can see that 60 dew point line does get as far north as Severn, Kentucky. I think that's where we could potentially see our pretty decent risk of severe weather, probably get as far north as Severn, Kentucky. Anywhere you probably see 60 plus dew points, that's when you get into a favorable environment, probably for strong storms, at least anyway. Either way, though, still some pretty decent dew point values out there, especially when you get into mid 60s. And let's talk about the Supercell Composite as well. You can see here, Supercell Composite values are not very high. As you can see here, it's got the greatest risk for severe weather in southeastern Oklahoma, parts of northeastern Texas. Kind of backs off a little bit, but does pick back up again when you get into Mississippi and Alabama. But then again, probably underdone with those instability values. We'll probably be able to tell to see if these models are really actually underestimating instability values. We'll probably have a better idea on this when the high-res NAM gets in range and the HERT model. Those typically handle better when it comes to instability as well. And here's the Gfs Ensembles here. And you can see here, pretty strong mean here, certainly. About 995 millibars, so kind of in between the GFS and Euro, I would say. This might come down a little bit south a little bit as well. But let's talk a little bit about the winter side of things on the back side here. You got a pretty good mean out there as well from eastern Kansas all the way up to Michigan. That's probably an area I'll definitely focus on for that winter storm potential as well. We can certainly see quite a bit of snow out of that as well. And something I almost forgot is the wind gust. Regardless if you see strong severe storms or not, it's going to be windy, especially if you live far up north, like in Tennessee, Kentucky, parts of Indiana, Ohio. It's going to be windy. So let's check this out here. Now, if we do trend towards a stronger system, we could probably see stronger wind gusts out of this. And like I was saying here for Wednesday, it's going to be pretty windy for some areas out there, especially for up north. It's got wind gusts for 50 miles an hour. That might be a little bit overdone up there. But watch what happens when the system comes in. That's some pretty nasty wind gusts. That's Thursday evening. Our low will be somewhere right in here. But I mean, these wind gusts are pretty nasty. Now, honestly, I think these wind gusts are a little bit overdone. But either way, even taking off a little bit, this could do some damage. I mean, wind gusts. I mean, it gets worse when you get deeper in the day here. I mean, look at central Kentucky. It's got widespread wind gusts of 60 to 65 miles an hour. Then again, I do believe it's overdone, but even taking off a little bit, that can cause some problems. Dangerous travel, especially for a high-profile vehicle. Uh, Tree damage, and also you get power outages as well with wind gusts that strong. But also, I think max wind gusts for the time being, maybe 50 to 55, maybe close to 60 miles an hour. But either way, that's going to cause some problems out there, even with wind gusts that strong as well. Let's check out the GFS model, which conveniently it's updating the time I'm making this video, so may as well look into the newest run and see what we got when it comes to wind gust. And let's see here. And it looks like I might be a little bit further south of the tracker with the latest run here, but still a pretty strong low. But regardless, look at these wind gusts. I mean, widespread 55, 60 miles an hour. It's got some areas getting at least 65. I mean, that's some pretty powerful wind gusts. And wind gusts probably not as strong when it gets to the northeast, but regardless, it's going to be very windy up there as well. You can see some of those strong wind gusts continuing in the parts of the Carolinas as well. And with the European model being a little bit weaker, this will be the last one we'll check out with wind gusts. Let this load here for a little bit. You can see here, here's Wednesday. Got some strong wind gusts in parts of the lower Ohio Valley. But you can see here, even with a slight weaker low, still some stronger wind gusts out there as well. Widespread 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts, which that can also still cause some problems as well. So we also definitely got to pay attention to that wind gust threat as well. But anyways, guys, that's all for guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys questions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.